Kota Ibushi and PAC are named as the final two participants in next week's Blood and Gut match from the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. MJF and Adam Cole advance in the Blind Eliminator Tag Team Tournament, as well as Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia. Those two teams will meet in the final to determine the number one contenders to the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Nick Wayne makes his AEW TV debut against Swerve Strickland last night. Jim Ross says he hopes to be back on AEW TV by AEW All In at London's Wembley Stadium. Ruby Soho advances to the finals of the Women's Owen Hart Foundation Tournament. Lance Archer is going to be making his return to AEW television this Friday on AEW Rampage, and Rouge is now back in AAA. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. Let's start off with the participants, the final two participants, the mystery participants in the Blood and Guts match next week, as I mentioned, from Boston, Massachusetts in the TD Garden. The full lineups for next week's Blood and Guts match at the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts are now set, with the fifth man for both the Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite teams announced at the end of the July 12th episode of AEW Dynamite on TBS. And while one was exactly who fans were hoping for, the other was a bit of a surprise, albeit one that does make plenty of sense. After Don Callis made his entrance to announce the fifth member of the Blackpool Combat Club team, replacing the injured Bryan Danielson, Kenny Omega made his way to the ring, only to be cut off by Jon Moxley and Konosuke Takeshita. As Omega fought back, he was blindsided with a steel chair by the returning PAC, who had not been seen on AEW television since he and the Lucha Brothers lost the AEW World Trios title to Omega and the Young Bucks in January, marking a 6-month absence from AEW TV. PAC announced that he had not forgotten that Omega shattered my nose bone during the Death Triangle Elite Best of 7 series for the AEW World Trios Championships. As Moxley placed the chair around Omega's neck and asked if he had any last words before being taken out, the Winnipeg native told him to turn his attention to the video screen. A video then played revealing that Omega's Golden Lovers tag team partner Kota Ibushi will be the fifth member of his team, which allowed enough of a distraction for the Young Bucks and Hangman Adam Page to run in and clean house. So it's official. Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, Konosuke Takeshita and PAC, representing the Blackpool Combat Club and the Don Callis family, will face the Golden Elite of Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page, Kota Ibushi and the Young Bucks next Wednesday night in Blood and Guts in Boston, Massachusetts in the TD Garden. What are your thoughts on the two final members for each team? PAC joining the Blackpool Combat Club's team, and Kota Ibushi, unsurprisingly, being revealed as the fifth and final member of the Elite. So the Golden Elite reunites next week. What did you think of the reveal? What did you think of the segment? Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comments section below. Let's talk about the Blind Eliminator Tag Team Tournament, because we now know what the finals are going to be. An odd coupling that would delight Neil Simon. The partnership of Adam Cole and MJF continues. On last night's AEW Dynamite, Cole and MJF were successful in the semi-finals of the AEW Blind Eliminator Tag Team Tournament with a victory over Brian Cage and Big Bill. Cole and MJF will face the other team that advanced, we'll talk about that in just a second, who advanced earlier on in the evening by defeating Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin. And of course, the finals of this tournament will take place on the July 12th episode of AEW Dynamite. After the match, Cole promised that should he and MJF win the tournament, the two men will win the AEW World Tag Team Championships on the July 29 episode of Collision. All of this was to the chagrin of Cole's injured friend Roderick Strong, who remains suspicious of MJF's intentions and worried that the situation will turn bad for his former Undisputed Era compatriot. Now, as I mentioned, their opponents in the finals of the tournament have been revealed, as well as all of this stuff is going on with the Jericho Appreciation Society at the moment. Two members continue to be successful, albeit with a bit of tension. One semi-final down, the other one again was determined later on in the evening. On last night's episode of AEW Dynamite, Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia of the Jericho Appreciation Society defeated Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy after an assist from Prince Nana and Swerve Strickland of the Mogul Embassy. The match was a back and forth affair until Nana showed up at ringside to grab Darby Allin's skateboard and suggest to Garcia that he use it as a weapon. This provided a distraction for the referee that allowed allowed Strickland to come in from behind out of nowhere and kick Darby in the head, which made him easy pickings for Sammy Guevara to hit the GTH and get the victory. This sends the Jericho Appreciation Society team to the finals on next week's edition of Dynamite in Boston. After the match, the announcers noted that this may provide extra motivation for Strickland's opponent, Nick Wayne, who has known Darby Allin for years, going back to their time together training under Nick's dad, Buddy Wayne, at his wrestling school in Washington State, although it didn't go too well for Nick Wayne later on in the evening. We'll talk about that in just a second. But what are your thoughts on now the finals of this Blind Eliminator Tag Team Tournament? MJF and Adam Cole facing off against the Jericho Appreciation Society. Who do you think wins, and can Adam Cole actually trust MJF, or is he going to be in a lot of trouble moving forward? Now let's talk about Nick Wayne. As mentioned, he made his debut last night, but it wasn't a successful one. The wrestling world had its eyes on AEW Dynamite to see the debut of wrestling prodigy Nick Wayne. Unfortunately, the 18-year-old lost his AEW in-ring debut against Mogul Embassy's Swerve Strickland, despite having his friend and former AEW TNT champion Darby Allin cheering him on from the entrance ramp. Wayne put up a good fight, nearly felling Strickland to a springboard cutter, but eventually ended up being driven into the canvas with a vicious JML driver. Allin was not only watching the match of his friend, but also keeping an eye on Strickland, who, as I mentioned, cost Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy their AEW Blind Eliminator Tag Team Tournament semi-final match earlier on in the evening. A recent high school graduate, Wayne signed with AEW last year while still actually completing his studies. Brought to the attention of AEW President Tony Khan by Darby Allin, Wayne was the center of a series of vignettes that were the brainchild of Darby, the son of the late wrestler and trainer Buddy Wayne. Nick joins another recent high school graduate, Billy Starks, in the company. Starks recently competed in the Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament, losing in the opening round to Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Athena. Now, as I mentioned there, actually these vignettes we saw last week and this week were actually Darby Allin's idea. Quote, "How are you supposed to know a 16-year-old kid?" Darby asked in a new interview with Lost Signals. The former TNT champion was asked about teenage wrestling prodigy Nick Wayne and how to introduce him to the fans ahead of his in-ring debut last night. Quote, "I went up to Tony and said, I have this idea and I want to present Nick in a way where I make a video package for him so people can get to know him before he wrestles and not just throw him out there as a random guy, but have a backstory. According to Darby, he enjoys figuring out new ways to present wrestlers and wrestling. That's all I've ever wanted in life," Allin confessed. "Not just wrestling, but life. Just the opportunity to do something with myself. It's cool when you have someone like Tony Khan who has a national television company and is letting you take the ball and run with it." Allin says for the good or bad, a lot of things that are involved in his presentation come to mind. As I mentioned, he made his debut last night, Nick Wayne, unsuccessfully against Swerve Strickland, but many have high hopes for him in All Elite Wrestling moving forward. What did you think of Nick Wayne's debut? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. And what could his future and ceiling be in All Elite Wrestling? A bit of an update when it comes to Jim Ross. He hopes that he's going to be at AEW's All-In event at London's Wembley Stadium later on this year. On Sunday, August 27, All Elite Wrestling will present their biggest show to date with All-In at Wembley Stadium in London, England. This will be one of the major dates of what should be a huge summer for the company that kick-started with the premiere of AEW Collision on Saturday, June 17. On the debut episode of that show, Jim Ross joined Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness for the main event matchup. However, Ross took a fall on the morning of the broadcast and didn't sound like himself on commentary. On the latest episode of Grilling JR, the WWE Hall of Famer updated fans on his health now. He said, quote, "I had a rough week with my leg. I'm not changing doctors, I'm just adding doctors. I went to one doctor and he said, I have to get you to a specialist that can give you an antibiotic shot. I said, why can't you do it? That's not what I do. They recommend me to this guy. It's been a challenging week. I think we've made some improvements. We have a good game plan. I just need a break. I need a break in the action and move on. It will happen. I have good doctors, good care. If I don't get the results that we're looking for, I'll go to the Mayo Clinic and start over and see where it takes us. I'm okay. It's going to be all right. It's just frustrating as heck to deal with this every day." Ross continued on to further detail how his current condition is, saying, quote, "My sciatic, I didn't realize how crippling that was. It's been driving me crazy. It was 3 days where I had a hard time even walking to the bathroom. It's not been good the last week or two, but I see improvement, I see the direction, and I have hope that it's going to be fine. That's where we are. It's just one of those deals. I don't have any timetable on returning to work. I have to get better. I can't start traveling again. They're worried about infection and being on an airplane or an airport with an open wound It's not ideal. It will work out. I'm positive. I'm optimistic. I want to get back at the booth doing something. I don't know if I'm going back on Collision. My debut on Collision was not very auspicious because of my voice, which I still don't get. It's interesting. The doctor said it might be stress-induced. I said that's a weird analogy. Stress being because of my illness. I have a lot to be thankful for. It's all going to be good. I just have to make it good. On his hope to make a return to the promotion for All In London, Ross said, quote, I really want to make Wembley. Right now, I don't know if I can. I hope so. I don't want to say I have a target date, but you have to have some kind of goal. Wembley is my goal. I hope I'm back before then, but certainly Wembley is something I want to be part of. So here's hoping that Jim Ross indeed can be a part of Wembley. Ruby Soho advances to the final of the Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament. Ruby Soho has made history. On the July 12 episode of AEW Dynamite, she defeated Sky Blue to advance to the finals of the Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament, making her the first wrestler, man or woman, to advance to the finals on 2 occasions. Of course, last year, she lost to Britt Baker in the finals at Double or Nothing, where Baker's boyfriend Adam Cole won the men's tournament, defeating Samoa Joe in the finals of the men's tournament. The match was competitive, but Blue made a mistake when she climbed to the top turnbuckle to attempt some sort of high-flying maneuver. Soho then crotched her on the top rope, grabbed her by the wrist, and yanked her into an avalanche short arm no future to get the victory. In advancing to the finals this Saturday night on Collision, Soho will face the winner of the other semi-final between Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Athena and Willow Nightingale. That was, of course, recorded last night and will air on Friday on AEW Rampage on TNT. Speaking of Rampage 2, Lance Archer is going to be making his return this Friday night. Lance Archer will wrestle on AEW television for the first time in months on this week's AEW Rampage show. AEW has announced that the Murder Hawk Monster will face off against Trent Beretta on the July 14 episode of Rampage. The match against Beretta will be Archer's first match in AEW since April 2023, where he faced and defeated Bryce Cannon in a singles match. Archer revealed last month that the reason he's been on the sidelines for a few months was because of a torn tricep, and categorically denied rumors of a bad booking being the reason for his AEW absence. The former IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion has wrestled a few matches over the last month for New Japan and Rev Pro, including the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship #1 contender match against Will Ospreay. Ospreay then went on to defeat Kenny Omega at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view and began his second reign as the IWGP US Champion. Apart from Archer's return match, a few other matches have been confirmed for this week's episode of Rampage on TNT. Naturally Limitless, the tag team of Dustin Rhodes and Keith Lee, will face Angelo Parker and Matt Menard, while Athena and Willow Nightingale, as I mentioned, will go one-on-one in the Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament semi-finals. Konosuke Takeshita will also wrestle against an unnamed opponent on Rampage as well, ahead of next week's Blood and Guts match in Boston, Massachusetts. Now, this is such a strange story involving Rouge and AAA. He's doing the hokey-cokey with this company, apparently, because this weekend's AAA Triple Mania event has received a shot in the arm. On Wednesday, Rouge confirmed he will be participating in the event in Tijuana, just weeks after announcing on social media that he and his father, Bestia Del Ring, were now totally independent and would no longer wrestle at AAA events. The previous announcement raised serious doubts about Rouge's in-ring future in Mexico, as he berated the promoters in his home country for displaying a lack of professionalism and for not giving him a contract to wrestle at their events. Despite Rouge's announcement, AAA never officially cancelled the tournament bout pitting LA Park and Rouge against Sam Adonis and Psycho Clown, meaning fans were still holding out hope that Rouge would ultimately work out his differences with the AAA promoters. Turns out that's exactly what happened on Wednesday, as Rouge released a YouTube video to confirm his return to AAA. Interestingly, Rouge called out his own tag team partner LA Park, noting that he was determined as ever to facilitate the retirement of Park's legendary career. The countdown to your retirement begins, Pero, Rouge concluded in his video message. While he confirmed his return to AAA for Saturday's show, Rouge did not specify if he had re-signed with the promotion or if he'd be working any more shows for the company moving forward after this weekend's event. The Mexican star has been signed with AEW since September of last year, but he hasn't actually wrestled a match since the May 24 episode of AEW Rampage, where he and Preston Vance and Dralistico of La Faction Ingobernables lost to Billy Gunn and The Acclaimed in trios action. Besides Park and Rouge versus Adonis and Psycho Clown, this Saturday's AAA Triple Mania match will feature high-profile bouts such as AAA Mega Campeon El Hijo del Vikingo versus Kenny Omega, Pentagon Jr. and Laredo Kid versus QT Marshall and Taurus in a Lucha de Ambulancia match, an ambulance match, and Team Shalingo versus Team Baja with UFC Flyweight Champion Brandon Moreno at ringside. So there you go, guys. This latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.